Carpenter. I'm a senior journalism major here at Ole Miss, and it's my pleasure to introduce Keith Kawasaki, Senior Director of iostudio.
Thank you. So iostudio, we are an ad agency, which is a little different than some of the more traditional publishing models. And in our, I'm sorry. Let's try to stand still, which probably will be very difficult. So we're an ad agency, and so our world is we work with clients to put out their magazine for them, or whatever the product may be. It might be media buying, it might be video work, it might be a number of things. And as an ad agency, we have these broad capabilities of not only content marketing, but film production and interactive work, digital work, all within one shop. And I think, which is kind of a funny thing to see in the industry, is you're going to see a lot more of that, where you have ad agencies. I'm moving too much, sorry. Yeah, so, gotcha. Where ad agencies are getting into content marketing. We've been doing this since 2004, and with a product that we're contracted to do by the U.S. government, the United States Army National Guard, to do GX magazine. GX is the official publication of the Army National Guard. So we operate in the government space, and in the government space, the power of print, or the value of print, is very hard to justify in today's society with fiscal restraints. It's a very different scenario where it all comes down to quantitative data to tell how valuable your magazine is, if it's worth the taxpayers' money. So how do we make our magazine successful? For us, digital integration is mission critical. And that's kind of a military term, but that's an absolute must. It didn't start out that way. When we started out in 2004 doing just the print magazine, everything was pretty smooth going along there for a number of years, until a couple years ago, President Obama decided that any government publication should have digital capability. So not only was it something that is smart to do and exciting to do, but now the president's telling us that we have to do it. So there's no time to really test the waters and go smoothly into that process. We just kind of just dive right in and figure it out on the fly with fast failures and things like that. Which for me, in the shop that I work with, is wildly exciting, and we have a lot of fun with that. So what our challenge is making our magazine successful. There's no ad sales, there's no subscription sales, there's no newsstand sales, because the government, the Army National Guard, they own all the advertising, and it's sent out automatically to the force of the Army National Guard. Right now, our current distribution is 220,000 soldiers, and it's varied over the years. They turn the dials, as a government entity will, to hit those markets. But you might think, like, okay, that's nice and easy because you don't have to worry about selling ads and people are automatically getting your magazine. But it's the government, and it's the U.S. government, and it has its own world of challenges. And in our world, we're challenged to make a government magazine successful with government shutdown. You might remember 10 weeks where we had no government very recently. That was fun. Sequestration, so massive cuts across the board. The Department of Defense, where again, they're saying, like, everyone is in this space battling for dollars, and you're lobbying for your position in this, and it makes it a whole other publishing game. Congressional scrutiny, how is each tax dollar being spent? Is that really worth their money? Mass media scrutiny, again, looking at how defense contractors are spending that taxpayer dollar. Disconnected funding sources and rotating client leadership. This is something that, in a typical ad agency, you have your client and their accounting firm, and they're kind of in a close-knit circle, and they're working together with you. In the government space, it's split up by divisions. So with the Army National Guard, for our magazine, GX, we're operating with what's called a contracting officer representative, who's a warrant officer, who reports to a lieutenant colonel, who reports to a colonel, who reports to another colonel, all in this advertising division. But then your funding sources is over here, and they're not reading your magazine. They don't care necessarily what you're doing. They're just looking at their spreadsheets and the contracts and the contract line items to see if you're really worthwhile. in the middle of all this, your client is rotating out every 6 months. If not, if you're lucky, you get them a year. If you're truly blessed, you might get them for 2. But they're changing out constantly, and they're operating in this whirlwind that is a wildly complicated contracting process. And this is actually a sketch that our client drew for us to explain to me why it takes so long to get money. And so you start out at the bottom and you work your way up. And each one of these little bubbles are teams of people that are dedicated workers. Some of them are civilian contractors that when government shutdown happened, they were all furloughed. And then other of them are green suiters or Army National Guard members. We're at the very top where it says vendor, and all the lines that work through the spider web eventually get up to us to put out our publication. So how do you make this magazine, GX, which started in 2004, something that survives this and keeps it going? And what we did was create a cross-channel brand experience that is absolutely indispensable. And this is something that I've known Samir for about 10 years now, and it's all about the experience. Over the last couple of years, I've gotten to know Bob Sachs a little bit, and I love that Bob always says that your print item needs to be a luxury item. That's what we do with GX. It's a high-quality print publication. Every issue of that magazine, we make sure it's better than the one before it. And we're taking this from being just GX as a print piece to a whole brand experience. And I've actually rewritten our contract with the government to be a brand experience, as opposed to just being a print magazine that they're getting 6 times a year. So when we dove into that and how do you accomplish this in an effective way, we looked at the experts. We didn't look at other military publications because, no offense, but they're kind of really dry, they're not the prettiest things in the world. And our audience is the sergeant out there. He's like 25 to 35. He's been deployed a few times. So, what's he reading? What's he looking at? So we look at Esquire, and we look at Red Bull. And I'm a Bloomberg geek. I love it. I know absolutely nothing about stocks, but I love everything that Bloomberg does. The way they present their content and the way they bring it to the user in all the different ways. One of the guys earlier was talking about looking at mobile devices while driving. I'm very, very bad at that. I'm always reading Business Week on the mobile phone because it's so exciting the way they present their content and you can engage with it. So we look at all these models for how to set up GX. And so I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of who we are with this little video.
This is a thinking man's game, and if they don't think, they're not going to be effective.
How do we build our brand? How do we get people to care about us? Like I said, we started out in 2004, and if you think about what's going on in our nation in 2004, we were starting up in 2 wars, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and no one wanted to talk to the media, let alone a soldier, a sergeant out in the field on the front line. Why would he care about talking to GX? Why is he going to trust us or the commanding officer that you're trying to talk to? Just to give you a little bit of background, I started out in the magazine from the very bottom levels. I'm the editor now, but back in the day, I was the little journalist running around trying to get all these officers to talk to you. I'm a civilian and from Long Island, and why would they stop what they're doing in their warfighting training to talk to me? Well, I knew from the start we had to present ourselves in a very clear and strong way, and building that brand was absolutely essential. A couple years ago, maybe more than that now, I'm getting a little older, in 2006 was Operation Jumpstart when the soldiers are on the border, protecting the border with Mexico with the illegal immigration and the drug smuggling. And I'm out there with all these AP journalists. AP journalists, they're sweet people, they're very nice, but they're a little all over the map. And so when the soldiers was like, don't go over there because you're going to get shot if you run behind that wall. Well, all the AP journalists go running quickly over behind the wall because they want that great photo, and sure enough, they're getting rocks thrown at them and everything else, and they come scrambling back, and the soldiers don't even want to talk to them. So I had to distance ourselves from them, say we are not the typical mass media out to slander you or present you in the wrong way. We're very truthful in what we do. We're not propaganda by any stretch. Our role is to capture the true story of what these soldiers are doing in their service and what that means. So what do you lean back on? And we needed a clear, irrefutable mission: celebrate and support soldiers and families of the Army National Guard. So if I'm out there trying to interview a sergeant and his commanding officer runs up and says, "Why are you here?" I'm here to celebrate and support soldiers in the Army National Guard. Those funding parties that are disconnected over here, and they're looking through the contracts, they're like, why is this important? Why should we care? Well, it comes back to our mission of celebrating and supporting the soldiers. And everything that we do, everything about our brand ties back to that. And that mission having that clear mission is so critical for us because it ties directly into the unique needs of our client. The Army National Guard is split up in 3,500 communities across the nation. So say you're out in South Dakota, you drill once a month, 100 miles away at your drill location, and you go there once a month, and that's your touch point with your service. Your family never sees that, your employer never sees that. All of a sudden, you get deployed for a year, and everyone's affected, and everyone's confused. So how do you keep these soldiers feeling like their service is valued, and they're part of something bigger than their own little world, and they're doing something that's really making a difference, and they're sharing their experience, which is a very unique, life-changing experience. I mean, they put their lives on the line, so this isn't just like, I'm joining to, I'm a fan of a brand to buy a product or something. This is life and death for a lot of them, and the other side of it is keeping folks engaged in their service for the Army National Guard. At the time, like I said, for most of the 2000s, you had 2 wars going on, plus all the domestic disasters. So you want to keep your folks in the Guard and feeling inspired by it, and that's the service of choice for them. So by celebrating and supporting the soldiers in this high-quality magazine, which is what it was for most of it until recently when we started getting branching out into a lot of digital space, every other month, they're getting GX in their mailbox, and it's stories about them, heartfelt, powerful stories about how soldiers like them are making a difference across the globe and in their communities at the same time, doing amazing missions. If you think of the National Guard over the past 10 years, it has been the most courageous and tumultuous 10 years since World War II for them. The 134th out of Minnesota at one point was deployed for 22 months. It's 22 months away from the families, away from their jobs, in the thick of fighting. The 39th Brigade out of Arkansas, they had something like 9 silver stars. So amazing service going on. And what GX has been able to do is capture that. We've captured these legacies, and we've done it consistently for 10 years. I know there's some publications been out for longer, but 10 years in government space is a significant milestone, so we're pretty stoked about that. By doing this consistently, every day we're out there. We're on the front line with the soldier. We've been to Iraq, we've been to El Salvador, we've been to Cuba, Djibouti. We've been all over the United States to remote locations that are like secret squirrel places you're not supposed to go to. They trust us and invite us there because we go there with them, and we've turned our audience into a community. So you have roughly 350,000 soldiers in the Army National Guard, and you have National Guard Bureau over in Arlington. That's the man, so to speak, disconnected over there. You've got all these individual states that are born out of militias. If you go back in the history, how do you bring all these people together? What's that unifier? And that unifier is GX. And they're sharing and being a part of this experience with us. So if you go back like where I was talking about earlier when we're starting out, and we're a small team, there's me and a few other folks, and I'm 24, 25 years old running around with all these generals and colonels and sergeants and everything else, why should they care about GX? Well, you have to be a little cocky with it. You gotta be like, hey, I'm important. GX is something that's at the time, in the early days, was bigger than it was. You had a really strong logo. You put it on shirts, you put it on hats, and you go and you walk right up to it. You're not afraid. So if they're gonna go and trudge through mud under barbed wire, you're gonna go with them. You're gonna ruck 9 miles. You're gonna embed and sleep in the barracks, and you're gonna be just as tough because it's an alpha male society, to be honest. And so you gotta bring it, and you gotta go with them, and you have to just put it all out there and trudge along and show that you are worth their time and you are one of them. In a lot of ways, GX is their battle buddy. But you don't settle with that. We still have something to prove to our audience every single time. There's certain things about service when you've been following it for 10 years that you see as repetitive. You know that the Red River is always going to flood. You know there's always going to be wildfires in California. The war in Iraq and Afghanistan, after you've covered every type of mission, you could think it gets repetitive, but you don't settle into that. And you look at new stories and new ways to help those soldiers discover new things about their service that they didn't know and didn't realize about why they're important and the legacy that they're a part of. This is kind of interesting. Apparently, no one in the National Guard in the past 50 years has ever talked about desegregation. This is something that you don't talk about that. It didn't happen. But I don't know. Maybe it's because in Long Island you get raised to question everything and nothing's sacred. So we went and dove into it, and this actually took place here, Ole Miss, the Lyceum. James Meredith in 1962 became the first African-American student to enroll in the university. JFK called out the National Guard. You think about those soldiers and what they're experiencing. So they get their orders to respond, and they're in a culture where their friends and their family don't necessarily agree with what they're doing. But they go and they respond, and they're faced with riots, and it ended up becoming a very moving piece and a very popular piece for us, and it was something that was brand new to our audience and for the National Guard to address. Same with women in combat. This is a hot issue in the Department of Defense, and we tackle it head on and we talk about it. Wounded warriors, not in the sense of just the hardship, but the rebuilding. Resiliency is the government's word for how to handle PTSD and suicide prevention. The government, in a lot of ways, is very similar to corporate America, where if they want to address something with you, they'll give you a really cheesy PowerPoint, and you'll watch a lame video, and no one will really care. So what we decided to do, from how GX is going to approach it, because we're the battle buddy, right? We're the guy with the soldiers. So we had a roundtable where we brought in the doctors who were informing the National Guard Bureau about PTSD and resiliency. We had National Guard Bureau itself, and a sergeant fresh from Afghanistan who was platoon leader, who had actually lost one of his platoon members to suicide. And we sit them down at a table and let them have a free discussion, touching on the topics from all the different perspectives. Every one of the parties came out changed with new ideas and a new appreciation for what was going on. So we were able to support that dialogue. The other side of it is domestic terrorism is big. Obviously with Boston, cyber warfare is also big, and it's a call to action for our audience. 9/11 saw a spike in recruiting and retention, and so now with domestic terrorism, this is also another, hey, you're needed. You're valued. We understand the threat that you are facing every day, and you're the ones who are going to raise your hand and stand up for us. So our readers love it. They are the most supportive group that you can ever imagine, and that's where we can get the doors open for us at Guantanamo. We can go inside Fort Greely, because they know that we are there with them, and we are looking at their service in a very realistic way. And we're supporting them and honoring them and what they do. But the funny thing, again, because it's government, we still have something to prove to our client. Government you have all these layers of client, and they're not necessarily reading our beautiful piece on desegregation. They're not reading our domestic terrorism piece. They're looking at the numbers, and where we live, data is king. For them, it's not content, because they're not, like I said, they're not engaged in that. They're looking at what they're used to in today's government contracting folks. They're used to web metrics, analytics, what kind of stuff you're putting in front of them for that. So if you're going to survive in publishing and content generation like this, digital integration is mission critical. Again, you just have to do it. So when that when the funding discussion's happening, these folks over here looking at the numbers, you can prove that your brand has the engagement of X number to validate its existence. So what we've done is set up a model around our brand and our content, 'cause our content is so strong, our photos are so strong, our stories are so strong, that it's become this content generating machine. And so you've got not only the website that works on the mobile devices, then you also got social media, the magazine itself, iPad, film production. We call this our content acquisition team, because everything in government has to have a really big title. It actually has an acronym as well, because everything has acronyms. What we've also done, which I'm excited about, in 2014, we're launching a call center. And you think, like, why would you do a call center? Is it just like, hey, my address has changed? No, it's about helping soldiers walk through the process of re-upping or changing their job or moving to another state. There's a lot of factors involved with that. And GX is there to celebrate and support the soldiers. We're their battle buddy. We have a team of experts on staff who can walk them through that. Soldiers have been there and done that. We're also getting into Layer next year. I'm excited to hear Martin speak. We're going to be doing that, because what's better than validating your print product than adding in these brand engagement, that's what I call them, opportunities. We can show that. So we're diving into that. Email marketing has been big as well. We've seen open rates of 50%, where the industry, you're looking at 18%, something like that. To really take what we're doing and make it all it's the nice, warm, and fuzzies of all the creative approaches, but it's all very purposeful to get that quantitative data. And that's how we're working the system. It's been a complete career change for me. When I first met Samir, I was just a journalist. Now I'm reading federal acquisition regulations, and I'm in all these big meetings with colonels and generals to talk over contracts and negotiate the growth of this brand and why this brand is still viable and important for them. And so what I've been able to do is to take GX and make it a part of the system. So GX, as a content machine, is informing the National Guard's national advertising campaigns. We have the good fortune as an agency to be responsible for nationalguard.com, which is the main recruiting website. And so everything you're seeing in GX can inform nationalguard.com. And then in addition to that, all the state properties and, like I said, the big campaigns. So GX, which started out in 2004 as an 84-page magazine, now it's this massive brand beast that's informing all of how the National Guard is presented, which is an organization that's been around since 1636. So it's a lot of fun. You have to be half crazy to do this, so you have to love it. And like I said, to make a jump from a journalist to really, in a lot of ways, a lobbyist, you have to love it, and you have to be obsessive about learning all the different things that go along with government contracts. And you also have to be fearless, because when the government shuts down, you kind of have like, oh shit, But you dive right in and you figure it out and you come up with new ways, and you listen to smart folks like they're sitting up here on the ways that they've expanded the communication capabilities, and you think about how you can apply that to your brand and take it to the next level to get the data that you need that'll help you to get to the next step. So it's thoroughly exciting, and I hope that some of the startups out there can think of themselves as that brand experience definitely keep making a luxury print item. I love it every time Bob says that, and I love it every time Samir talks about experience. Because if you listen to those two things, it'll just it'll be your backbone to rely upon. So that's me.
Thank you.
Thank you.